talk about the retail opportunity. But before we get started, Frank, could you introduce yourself to our viewers?
My name is Frank. I'm the Senior Vice President of Edge Services at Zayo. I am responsible for all the solutions that go into a customer location or branch that sit on top of our network, including SD-WAN, switching, Wi-Fi, security. So everything kind of outwards from the network in that sits on our network falls under my scope globally.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Frank, for that. So I shared some of my insights related to the retail challenges out there. But from your perspective, what are some of the emerging trends in retail, and what should small to big box retailers consider?
Yeah, so I think they're fundamentally different. I think, big box retail has a different, I would say, problem and solution set than a small box retail. So starting kind of thinking about, the big box retail, really they're trying to look at how they're driving a digital experience in store. And so one of the most important things is giving the experience to whether they call them guests or shoppers or whatever it may be. Once they're in the store, how do we drive up in-store experience? And in that in-store experience, really trying to lead to how do we take, years ago, it was a stock room of how do we stock all this cool stuff and show all of this stuff that's everywhere and move that to a showroom, right? So if we're looking at walking into a Best Buy, right? Everything is bright, pretty, the big TVs with the cool sports on them, right? We walk into an Apple store, it's bright, it's clean lines, right? So, and in taking that, what we're trying to do in retail, or what retailers are trying to do, is really have a really positive experience and then push people towards kind of an omni-channel buying presence, which is like, okay, come in and see everything and then go buy it from one of our channels online or buy it here today, one of the two, right? But the store is just a fulfillment strategy for omni-channel. It's kind of one of many ways someone can buy. So, the digital experience for the user in the store is kind of becoming paramount for big box. And in the smaller footprint retailers, right? It's kind of like, how do we use technology to start that process, right? How do we use apps and things to draw you in? And then once you get into the store, then how do we have, some stock room there? Because the smaller footprint retailers are a little less about omni-channel, but still really interested in experience, just delivering it in a different way.
Awesome. So you touched on like an application-centric model. I'm wondering if you could spend a little bit of more, time there. And then also, what are some of the infrastructure considerations that retailers should be factoring for?
Yeah, so here at Zayo, we have a strategy. It's called the application-centric network model. And so you've got big service providers out there, which we're one of them, that build these really cool core networks, and they're really fast and high performing. But we take into account here at Zayo how the applications actually traverse. And really with that, our strategy is our edge core cloud theory and strategy, which looks at the edge, looks at our core network and how well we're connecting to the cloud. And the reason it's application centric is because, our definition of the edge is, where end users consume applications or digital experience is delivered. That can be transient. It happens kind of all over in a retail store, airplane, or a car, right? But we start to think about that, applications are key in delivering performance, reliability for a great user experience, right? From those applications is kind of key. We started that, prior to the acquisition of QoS Networks when I ran that company. We were delivering that via SD-WAN. Now we've got this fantastic ability to deliver that with SD-WAN. We then tie that into one of the nation's best fiber backbones in Zayo's core network. And then we've got about 400 cloud on-ramps out there where we can on-ramp into the cloud. And that's really exciting because, multi-cloud, I'm a firm believer, multi-cloud drives network demand. I think we all kind of believe that from a fundamental perspective. But when we start to look at how that works, it's very few companies out there can really, control the edge and deliver a really strong experience there, have a really great core network, and then connect into the cloud really well. You have different service providers out there that are piece parts of that. They do some of it well, but there's a very rare air where you've got a company who connects to the cloud really well, has a fantastic core network, and has one of the best edge products out there. That's what Zayo has. And that's what's really exciting. And so to answer the question a little bit more diligently on, what retailers should be looking at, well, getting back to the core tenets of what retail is driving right now, from what I'm told by our big customers, is driving digital experience to push an omni-channel buying strategy is kind of like delivering that experience with applications is kind of most important. So we've aligned our strategy directly to that for retail, which is we want to be the absolute best at delivering digital experience, whether that's, wireless and our Wi-Fi, private wireless, Wi-Fi 6, whether that's SD-WAN, whether that's, bandwidth, performance, reliability. We believe that we've got a very compelling, way to deliver digital experience to retailers globally. We work with the largest in the world, and we're really proud of that.
It's a big ask, I think, for a lot of brick and mortar. Many of them do they're omnichannel, like you mentioned, and they have online businesses, but some don't, and that's probably some of the smaller retailers. And I think I saw some of those challenges during the pandemic, and I think we'll stop talking about the pandemic soon. But a lot of service industries had to pivot to online ordering and that sort of thing. So I mean, it's sort of it's sort of intimidating to sort of approach this. So I'm wondering, do you have any tips or tricks for folks that are starting this journey? And if you could spend a little bit of time on security as well, because that's a huge consideration, right?
Yeah. So the first tip is, we believe that retailers should have a physical presence, right? Brick and mortar, and have an online presence, right? And they should support one another, and they should work hand in hand. Anybody trying to buy from me should be able to buy online, pick up in store, buy in store and have it delivered to the home. So there's two kind of ways here, right? And they work, alongside one another. There's a lot of times we're in stores where they have a vacuum and it's not the one I want, but I'm going to order it right now on the app. It's going to be in my house in 2 days. That's okay. Or I could be in a store, I pick up a pair of Jordans and I'm like, I really like these, right? But my hands are full. I don't want to carry them around in the mall the rest of the day or wherever I'm at. Or I just want this slightly different color, order them online right from the store. They just have come to my house in 2 days. And then vice versa is I'm sitting at home and I'm like, I don't want to wait in any lines. I don't want to go walk through a Target today. I want it ordered online and I'm going to have it ready in 30 minutes. I'm going to pick it up. That starts to drive omnichannel, right? So that digital experience needs to be synonymous, whether you're home or whether you're in the store. It needs to be exactly the same no matter where you are. And that's the key challenge that we're solving for retailers. That application experience is similar anywhere you go. So that's kind of A. And then the smaller side, just to kind of like hit on that a little bit, which is, smaller retailers are trying to figure out how to do that because they're not building the technology themselves, right? They're partnering with Amazon, a 3PL, things like that to try to fulfill it. And I think Amazon's done a fantastic job of leveling the playing field where smaller retailers can now compete in the bigger space, which is really exciting to see. And there's lots of different channels out there. It's not just Amazon, right? There's many different e-commerce channels, which is exciting. I have two friends in the e-commerce business, just coincidentally, and I learned a ton about e-commerce over my time, where these smaller retailers are really engaging in e-commerce in a really meaningful way. And digital transformation has taken on a whole new life. And we believe at Zayo that's driven by multi-cloud. So what I'm most excited for is the smaller retail competing with the bigger retailers because of a strong e-commerce strategy delivered by multi-cloud. So that's all really exciting. Hitting on your security piece here, security is foundational to everything that we do and foundational to everything retailers need to do. It's a fundamental thing that has to be there kind of every step of the way. It does not mean we need to be super scared of everything that happens. It needs to mean though that you have very strong security posture, you have good fundamentals, you follow your strategy that you set up, and you execute really, really well to minimize the risk of a security event. Okay, what we're trying to do in security, there's no real way that we can stop everything. But where there is a real way we can minimize risk to a very reasonable level. There's going to be risk in everything that we do. And we want to sell online, there's going to be risk, right? But we have to minimize that risk to a reasonable level. And that is things like, if you're brick and mortar, right? Are you having, is the Wi-Fi secured properly so people don't do things inadvertently or a threat actor can't access, the network? Do we follow PCI compliance, right? For payment cards, right? Do we have perimeter? Are we looking at DLP, so we're not losing data? Are we looking at, all the different ways to secure? We can name 1,000 different things. Zero trust pops up. I think the best thing that retailers can do is to build a really strong foundational framework, a strategy for the way you secure your network that's built on really good fundamentals. and then staff it appropriately, dedicate people towards it, put in the best tools and have those tools integrate and automate, and then manage that in a robust way. And you'll minimize your risk meaningfully. I think people that think security is not foundational are the people who leave themselves open for additional risk. We're not going to say, hey, everybody's going to get hacked here, but we're going to say,
Right.
hey, there's just additional risk, that we shouldn't be taking when we're talking about payment cards in retail for the most part.
Yeah, no, I mean, great point. If security is an afterthought, those are the companies that tend to get breached. Two takeaways from, our conversation. The whole need for consistency in that application-centric model, I think, is key. That's going to create stickiness for people to repatronize, certain retailers and that sort of thing. And I think your point around, a good cohesive connectivity strategy can also allow the smaller retailers to compete, like you mentioned, like with the big box. So it can be very, very transformative. So great insights there, Frank. I appreciate that. But as we close our conversation, I'm wondering, can you provide some examples of how Zayo has actually helped retailers?
Yeah. So one of the great things about being at Zayo and being at QS Forum really was, we have a heavy retail presence. So we work with some of the top retailers in the world. And being in that position, we see the unique things that they're doing to drive, digital experience, digital transformation in an omnichannel environment, right? So being kind of having a catbird seat there, one of the things that we do really well is we deliver a 3-phased approach to help retailers drive connectivity from each place that they're transferring data, right? Which is in the edge. Right. So we take all that information from the edge with our SD-WAN solutions, our Wi-Fi solutions, switching, all the things we do in the edge, right? Combine that with our circuits in our core, right? And our highly performing network. We take that information privately, fully encrypted to hit on the security undernotes here. It's like we secure that information and then we privately deliver that to the cloud with ultra high capacity, right? We're working on 100 gig to the cloud providers, which is really exciting for high capacity globally. And ultra low latency. So one of the things that we're doing that's much different is we're looking at ways that we can utilize our core network to drive ultra low latency back into SD-WAN, which a lot of people just cannot do, right? Yeah. Aggregators can't do it, right? Most service providers aren't focused on it, but we're looking at taking SD-WAN and connecting things and lowering latency measurably so it'll be ultra high performance. And that's our big focus right now, utilizing our core network in our application-centric network model to deliver better performance and reliability.
So from a latency perspective, that's interesting. I can think of maybe an AR experience in a brick and mortar, requiring ultra low latency. What are some other applications and use cases that retailers could leverage with that ultra low latency that Zayo can deliver?
Yeah, so IoT is really important. Right. And so, IoT in a retail environment is, when people walk into a store, you've got Bluetooth connections, you've got wireless connections, you're kind of following people throughout the store and you're kind of looking at where are people spending a lot of their time. If it's in a store, like a Nike store, for example, are they looking at a specific shoe? Are you taking those insights back? Right. Are you providing a real-time experience? That's kind of where we're starting to get to. When I talk about digital experience, it's not that we have a sign that says, buy my hot dog for $1. That's ridiculous. It's, it's driving a real-time experience in the store based on what is going on in that store at that specific time, right? Yeah. So if you're walking through a store and, you're stopping by a shoe aisle, is it going to be, from a Bluetooth sensor, have put you by the shoe. Let me throw you some shoe ads. Let me kind of take that information back and kind of make your shopping experience significantly more customized, right? Yeah. So if we're starting to customize shopping experiences in the big box retail per customer based on our buying habits and motives of things we're doing online and here, we're starting to get to drive to a really strong digital experience, right? Yeah. So now we can be more things to more people. And that's a really exciting place to be. I think it's also on the employee side, right? So we talk about associates and things in stores and how are they delivering a really good, level of service today? And when they approach someone in a store, how do they understand the buying habit of what's going on with that person, right? Yeah. So driving that real-time nature becomes important. So low latency becomes better. And one of the things is it's not going for like zero latency. We're just looking to take it down to a meaningful level. And with our network, we've got routes between key cities and key cloud targets, right, that allow to keep that latency very low. So customers can measurably, meaningfully get better application performance, because the SD-WAN at the edge will take care of the packet loss and the jitter, and we will take care of the latency in our core. That's where we win. That's a competitive differentiation that we have that a lot of aggregators out there, MSPs, just cannot solve because they're beholden to other people's networks. We have the core network, and it's a total game changer.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you own it end to end. You can deliver that consistency and that robust connectivity and that predictability. Others, rely, on another network, and it's sort of best case. But I like your example in retail about customizing the shopping experience, presenting coupons, with IoT sensors and that sort of thing as you walk by different, floor racks and that sort of thing. Because if you think about it, how I shop typically is I'll go to a big box retailer and I'll be looking at something in the store, then I'll just get on my Amazon app. I hate to admit it, and I'm using that retailer as a showroom.
Yep.
And if I find a cheaper price, I should be loyal, but I'm not. And so that use case that you described can really change the game for retailers of all sizes, right?
Yeah. Next generation retail technology is so interesting because, not to go back to the pandemic, which I don't like talking about anymore, but it's changed the way, the buying habits of how we buy as Americans and people throughout around the world. But I think the really interesting piece is that, the real-time insights in the retail environment is starting to get really exciting. Being close to the best retailers in the world and learning about all this from what they're doing is also really exciting. And it's also really fun when we're in those meetings being like, here's how we can help you deliver that. And competitively, we're not really ever outmatched, which is a really fun place to be. So we're winning a lot of really fun retail deals.
Yeah, I spent many years in retail, in junior high, high school, and even in college. And so this is an area that's sort of, very near and dear to my heart. And as we've kind of walked through our conversation, it dawns on me that what Zayo can help enable retailers with is the ability to be more competitive, to improve profitability. I mean, you can even implement smart cameras to reduce shrink and shoplifting. I mean, and connectivity is the bedrock for all of that.
Yeah, I started my career in retail prior to being in technology, with a big box retailer at Home Depot. So I've got all of these really interesting kind of retail thoughts that roll through my head. And if you kind of look at our network offering, a lot of it's designed around delivering a really solid retail experience, because automation is key to retail. I was at Home Depot in the days when it was stack it high, watch it fly, right? Which was put everything into a store. Then the strategy changed to stack it low, watch it go, which moved from putting everything into a store to just-in-time inventory, which took a huge amount of automation. And then we added, back-end automated receiving. We added computed automated ordering. We added all of these things in, and then that kind of moved into delivering an in-store experience. So all of that stuff is really exciting to watch it continue to grow. And now being on this side of the fence of delivering that technology, it's really exciting to help deliver to really big box retailers things that they're looking for, and then being able to custom build a product to help deliver it, but having the tool set to do it, not just relying on someone else's network. We can build and are building and have delivered really compelling retail products that I think are unmatched in the industry.
I'm glad you touched on automation, because that is really key. And I'm glad you mentioned Home Depot. I actually spent time with Home Depot and their VP that's in charge, and I think VP and general manager that's in charge of technology deployment and infrastructure, and actually wrote a Forbes article. So if the viewers want to tune into that, if you go hit my Twitter link at Willtown Tech, you can read that article. It was with Aruba, but I'm sure Zayo is a part of that as well. But hey, Frank, it's been a great conversation. Any final thoughts before we kind of wrap up the live stream today?
No, I think, at the end of the day here, retail is super exciting for me. I started my career there. We've got custom built, really good solutions to help the world's largest retailers and the smallest retailers and everything in between. And I think you'll find really game-changing solutions here at Zayo. So we're not, big pipes to big customers anymore. My MO here is driving an enterprise strategy that delivers real value. And I'm really excited to continue to do it with Zayo.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Frank. It's been a great conversation. I want to thank our viewers for tuning in. And stay tuned because this is just one in a multi-part series brought to you by Zayo. And have a great day.